Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil anbiya wal mursaleen. Wa ba'd. Over the past few sessions, we've been discussing the importance of etiquettes and adab. How are we meant to conduct ourselves? What are we meant to do when we connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We often think that ibadah is restricted to the four walls of the masjid. But Islamically, ibadah is something that informs my every decision. The way I walk, the way I talk, the way I interact, the way I greet somebody, the way I sleep, the clothes I wear. Adab are what we call ethics. Islamically, one of the difference between Islam and secular law is the question of ethics. What are ethics? Ethics means not what the yes and no is. Halal, haram. There's more than the halal and the haram. I'll give you an example. Let's say, for instance, I'm driving down any road. The light is green. As I'm driving past, the light is green, I can go by. But on the corner, I see this elderly woman. She tripped, she fell, and she needs help. If I look at her and say, it's fine, it's somebody else's problem, and I drive by, and the light is green, so I can go by, according to Western secular law, I have committed no crime. I am completely innocent. I've done nothing wrong. She fell by herself. That's her fault. But Islamically, there's a problem over here. As somebody younger, as somebody more healthy, I have a responsibility to help her. The difference between Islamic law and Western secular law is the question of ethics, meaning beyond the yes and no, there's a question of what is ideal and what is recommended. And oftentimes when we fixate on yes and no, we begin to lose the spirit of our ibadah. That, okay, what is the bare minimum that I have to do? It's not a question about what I ought to do. When we begin to lose sight of the adab, the etiquettes of our actions, then the ruhaniyah, the quality, the spirituality, the lifeline of our ibadah goes away. So to give you an example, if I'm going to pray salah and I need to make wudu, I have ample time. There's two ways of making wudu. One way of making wudu is I sit down, I start by saying Bismillah, I use the miswak, I start with my hands, I wash 3 times, I wash my face, I do it 3 times, I rinse my mouth, I rinse my nose. After I'm done, I recite the dua, I recite the shahada, I dry up, I come to the masjid, I come early, and I am ready for my salah. That's one way of praying salah. The other way is, it's time to make wudu. In 10.3 seconds, I'm able to get the water on my hand, the water on my other hand, the water on my face, the water on my feet, and I don't have time for my head, so I just sprinkle a little bit and I start running. I make it to salah, the imam just says, Allahu Akbar, he's about to do the salam, but I catch the salah. If you look at these two people, person 1 and person 2, there's nothing about halal and haram. The first person, he's done right. The second person, he did right. The problem is, one of the actions is completely devoid of ruhaniyah, and the other action is just is filled with the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the day of judgment, when somebody is going to be held accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your actions, Allah will ask me, Ramadan, did you fast all your Ramadan? Zakah, did you give all of your zakah? Salah, did you pray all your salah? Did you go for hajj? All of these things, that's the first thing that's going to be asked of me. When I answer these questions, very few people on earth will be able to say, 100% I have done it. For the vast majority of us, including myself, we have shortcomings in our fara'id. You know, maybe you missed a salah over here, you don't realize your zakah is a bit short over there, you haven't gone for hajj properly, your salah doesn't have this or that. There's some problems. How do we fill in the gaps with those problems? by our sunan, our nawafil, in our adab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, look, in your life, you missed salah X number of days. But in your day-to-day life, you had this nawafil. Or when you made wudu, you had these adab. That's going to fill in the gaps. So what I'm saying here is, when our vision, our understanding of Islam is only about halal and haram, yes or no, we go to the scholar and we ask, can I do it? Can I not do it? Whether I should or should not, don't be extreme. Don't tell me that. I want to know yes or no. Give me yes or no. I don't want to know anything else. When we do that, fine. I haven't done anything wrong. But the akhlaqiyat, the spirituality, the ruhani is completely gone. Why am I mentioning this? The subject that we have today is adabun nawm. What are the adab of sleeping? Whenever we talk about adab, many people find it hard to believe, especially non-Muslim people. For them, religion is all about what's in the heart. I believe in God, that's it. It's a private matter. You don't have to come to me. It's my private matter. I do what I want. The Islamic understanding of religion is very different. Even the word religion in English means something else. In Islam, we don't have religion. We have deen. Deen and the word religion is very different. Religion has to do with theology. What I believe. I believe in God, that's religion. What I do with my action, that's not religion. That's why even when we translate Islam, we shouldn't, convenience sake, we can call it religion, but in reality, it's a deen. What is a deen? Dana yadinu. It is a way of life. It is something that I do. It's something that I express. So the adab that we're covering is the adab of sleeping. And as a parent, as an elder sibling, or as somebody in charge in my household, it's very important that from a young age, I inculcate in my children these small adab. We may think it's small, but teaching my child, when he's walk out with this feet. When you're walking out, recite this dua. When you're going into bathroom, go in with your left foot. Hey, why did you walk out with your walk into the bathroom with your right foot? Somebody would say, why are you being so extreme? No. When you inculcate these qualities in the developmental stage, think about many of us. For instance, so many of us, we never went to a madrasa. We never went to a formal school, but there are certain things growing up that we have that our parents taught us that we're always going to do. How you enter into the masjid, how do you greet somebody, how do you show respect to the mushaf? You know, nowadays, there's a big conversation that, oh, the mushaf is just a book. It's fine, do whatever you want with it. You know, it's only a book. That's not the mentality that we have. The mushaf is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the Quran. We show respect to these things and Allah will give us the spirituality of the deen. So the topic that we have is adabun nawm. What are the etiquettes of sleeping? When a person goes to sleep, sometimes we're so exhausted, we don't even have time to brush our teeth, we don't have time to just jump onto the bed, my back is up, my stomach's on the ground and I'm sleeping. In 2 minutes I'm gone. Yes, apart from those scenarios, there's a certain way that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to sleep. He had an entire routine. Nowadays, people have a routine. They'll go, take off the makeup, brush their teeth, or a person will clip their nails, they'll spray up a bit, make sure they smell good, they'll change their clothes, get into their pajamas, have a nightlight on, read something, read a magazine, go to sleep. There's a whole process. People have an entire system of how they're going to go to sleep. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a system. What was his system? There's a lot of things to this. There's a spiritual component and there's a physical component. What was the spiritual component? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say, before you go to sleep, clean your heart before you clean your body. That day, I had an argument with my wife. That day, I had an argument with my son. I had a back and forth at work. I had a misunderstanding with my parents. Or this happened or that happened. Clean the heart. Don't go to sleep with something bugging your conscience. It's like indigestion. It's going to stay inside. It's just going to get worse. Clean your heart. I had a bad day. I'm trying to go to sleep and I didn't, I'm having an argument with my son. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, go clear it up. You don't know if you're going to wake up in the morning. Have that cleared up. The spiritual component, we'll talk about it. But what's next? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would say, go tawadda wudu'aka lis-salah. Go make wudu. So many of us, we brush our teeth before we sleep because we're scared there's going to be a bad foul smell in our mouth. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, do miswak, but also do wudu. Why do wudu? When our bodies go to sleep, our souls return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah yatawaffa al-anfus. Allah takes back the souls to Him when we're going to sleep. And we want to be in a state of purity. Again, is it fard? No. Do I have to do wudu? No. This is not a question of what I have to, what I don't have to. It's a question of how do I inculcate spirituality? How do I put the lifeline? Oftentimes people say, I feel as though Islam is dead in my family. Only thing we care about is halal and haram, and there's no concept of a feeling for salah. When we inculcate the adab, that's what's going to happen. Then Nabi ﷺ says, go on your bed, start on your right side. Now, many of us, we have difficulty. Maybe I can't sleep on the right side, I have to sleep on my back, I have to sleep on the left side. That's fine. But the moment I put my head on the pillow, even for a few seconds, just so I imitate the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, I'm just going to go to the right side. I'm going to go to the right side. And then there's a very beautiful dua we have to recite. It's a long dua. I'm not going to go through the whole dua right now. I'll go over it a few sessions so that we can remember it. But Nabi ﷺ says, once you put your head down, the first dua, obviously, is that we recite, Allahumma bismika amutu wa ahya. We know that dua, that the first thing I recite is, Allahumma bismika amutu wa ahya. Ya Allah, in your name I die, and in your name I am brought back to life. Because how many people close their eyes and they're never going to wake up? So this is the first thing that I do. But then there's another dua. It's a long dua, but I just want to mention two parts of the dua right now, and maybe we can start by reciting these two parts. It's a long dua, but we can start with the first two parts. Nabi ﷺ would say, and he would tell people to say the following dua. Allahumma aslamtu nafsi ilayk wa wajjahtu wajhi ilayk. Just remember these two for right now. The first part, Allahumma aslamtu nafsi ilayk wa wajjahtu wajhi ilayk. That's it. The person is saying, Ya Allah, Allahumma, oh Allah, aslamtu nafsi ilayk. I am submitting my soul to you. What does that mean? When my eyes are closing, my soul is going to Allah. So I'm saying, Ya Allah, as my physical eyes close and my soul goes to you, I'm submitting myself to you. Allahumma aslamtu nafsi ilayk. Next, وَوَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِي إِلَيْكَ. I am directing all my focus to you. You know how we say, إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا. Same thing, وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِي إِلَيْكَ. I am turning my face to you. And that's why it's not necessary, but inshallah, if possible, you know, some people, they'll have it to the right side, and if the qibla is in that direction, it's ideal. Like when I have it. But if structurally, architecturally, it's not possible in my bedroom, nothing wrong with it. I'm facing that way. Why is this important? Because the last moments of my night, before my eyes close, is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we learn from the hadith is, the way the person goes to sleep, that's the state that he is in for the remainder of the night. So if my last moments, I make wudu, I'm following the sunnah, and I recite the dua, it is as though I am doing ibadah all night, even though I'm having a very comfortable rest during that night. There's a lot of adab that we can discuss, but my personal experience has been this. Whenever we talk about the youth and how we can bring them back onto the deen, and you know, all these conversations about these challenges we face, one tip for myself is, let's rectify our own household. When our household becomes a living atmosphere of the sunnah, it gives them a psychological kind of buffer. It protects them. If my son comes every day, remember, not without forcing. We don't force our kids to do anything. We encourage them by example. Not that I'm telling my son, make wudu, and mashallah, I'm going to sleep without making wudu. I'm telling my son, sleep on the right side, I'm sleeping with my face against the pillow. I tell my son to recite the dua, I fall asleep with the phone on my face. We don't do that. We have to lead by example. I tell my son that, look what your baba is doing, look what your mama is doing, look at the way we're sleeping. When we have that culture atmosphere in our home, then the lifeline of the deen gets inculcated in them as they grow up. Inshallah, we'll continue to talk about adab, but just the one lesson for me is, from a young age, let's start these adab. And anybody comes to you and tells you, oh, you're being extreme, or it's not necessary. You know, subhanAllah, the other day, you know, my daughter, I put the hijab on her. You know, she was about 3.5, and my relative said to me, she's so young. Why are you putting a hijab on her? This is oppressive, this is wrong. I said, listen, I didn't come to you for parenting advice, first of all, but if you want to have this conversation, let's have a conversation. I'm not saying it's necessary for a child at that age to wear a hijab, don't get me wrong. But when, believe it or not, when my daughter, she's 3.5, she's 4, she saw her mother do it, that's why she wants to wear it. And I want her to slowly get into this habit now, not that she gets older and it's very difficult for me to give it to her. Is it necessary? No. Remember, I'm repeating this again and again. We're not talking about what is wajib or fard or haram. We're talking about what are the small etiquettes we can inculcate so that when they do grow older and they go past that age, their mind has already absorbed a lot of the ethics of Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the adab of Islam. May we follow in suit in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and inculcate the spirit of Islam beyond just the letter of the law. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdik. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.